here we are in Manhattan, and we're at the Garn author celebration. It's the second day. We've just come out from our 2 hours of being with Ruth Finnegan and all the authors from Humat Publishing, and we're going to focus on your book, Anthony Cody, which is
The Educator and the Oligarch. A Teacher Challenges the Gates Foundation.
Which has been one of the first books. It was one of the first books that we published. I'd like to start though in a more general fashion and ask you if you could tell us a little bit about public education, the status of public education at this time. It seems to me that that would be the best.
Well, I'd say, the issues that were raised in the book, The Educator and the Oligarch, were really being debated vigorously a few years ago as ideas. Should education technology be the way that children learn? Should charter schools and competition be the engine of innovation in public education? And now we're at a place where these things are playing out in the real world, and we're seeing a larger and larger share of school budgets going to charter schools. We're seeing the impact that this is having on the public education system. We're seeing children that are spending increasingly amounts of time tied into screens and their daily instruction being managed by technology. And we're seeing that these things, in my book, a lot of the, I was speaking from experience as an educator and challenging a lot of these ideas, but they were still in the idea space a little bit. Now we're seeing them actually play out, and we're seeing real world experience of what happens when you create charter schools that are run with no excuses, where children are bounced out when they don't wear the right color shoes, or when they don't follow, march in single file. We're seeing the effects on school budgets when large amounts of money are diverted into charter schools, or into technology that doesn't really benefit students. So I think, so the debate is actually shifting and becoming a lot more vigorous and a lot more public, because people are seeing the effects of these things. So I guess I think the pattern was laid out in The Educator and the Oligarch. The argument was made, and now we're seeing the real effects. So I told you so.
And Bill Gates?
Bill Gates doesn't seem to have learned, unfortunately, and they say that they're pressing ahead. They're spending more money than ever on charter schools. They're continuing to promote the Common Core, and I think it's a dead end. As long as they have billions of dollars to throw at it, you can keep pushing ahead through the obstacles, but ultimately it's going to run out of gas.
And democracy?
Well, democracy is for the rest of us to save. And I think this year we saw with the Bernie Sanders movement sort of an effort to rescue democracy. It's going to take a more sustained push to rescue democracy from the grasp of the billionaires. And unfortunately, I think in Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, you have very kindred spirits to the Gates Foundation. So I think we have an uphill fight with the Clinton administration.
Well, and Bill Gates and his worked with his foundation, has worked
Sure.
with
Oh,
those two
yes.
foundations, they're interconnected.
Very tight. Yes, the Gates, one of the top donors to the Clinton Foundation has been the Gates Foundation, so, yes.
And the role of public school teachers in the resistance movement that has emerged. Do you see it as located in schools, or is it a much larger movement?
Well, I mean, I think the movement that has begun to rescue, to save public education requires a much larger social movement that recognizes the flaws in privatized institutions. And we're seeing that also spreading to, with the recognition that private prisons are a terrible idea. And, you know, we have postal workers who are attempting to rescue the postal system from people who are intent on destroying it. So I think, you know, and with healthcare, we're seeing, you know, scandal after scandal where even a very healthcare system that was designed to be very generous to the private insurance companies and pharmacy companies isn't generous enough to these greedy bastards. So it's gonna, I think, they are gonna ultimately provoke a populist uprising that will, you know, hopefully rescue public institutions like including public education.
Do you think there'll be a tipping point when that happens?
Well, there has to be a tipping point at some point. And, you know, I think we're approaching one with not just the public institutions, but also with the environment. You know, when global warming becomes, when the people that are continuing to deny global warming are themselves drowning in the floods that the biblical floods that they have created, then perhaps when they're all in rafts, they will recognize that something needs to be done.
Hopefully before.
Well, honestly, I don't think it will be before, because I think as long as they can buy air conditioning and moats, you know, it's going to take some real desperate circumstances before things shift.
In your vision for public education, knowing how difficult things are at this time and the struggle that teachers are facing, the difficulties that children are facing, if you could make one or two changes immediately, what would they be?
Well, I think the easiest change to make would be to stop the harmful rhetoric and the harmful stigmatization of both public school students and public school teachers. This idea that you can spur improvement by constant measurement and you know, carrots and sticks, I think has been profoundly demoralizing to educators and to students.
So stop the over-testing.
Yeah, stop the over-testing. I mean, the problem is that it's not a coincidence that we have this over-testing at the same time that we have huge structural inequality increasing in society. And so it's an ideological project to justify the disenfranchisement and marginalization of whole groups of people, and to make those people believe that they don't deserve any better. So the easiest thing to do would be to stop telling them that they don't deserve any better. But on the other hand, if you stop telling people that they don't deserve any better, then they might start to think that they do deserve better, and then that creates a whole other social problem for the system, which doesn't want to give them any better. So that's our challenge, is to counteract the pervasive sort of propaganda that is inflicted on on oppressed people, that tells them that this is the best, that this is all they're made for.
I am thinking of Bill Gates, and what is the first thing that you would like him to think about as he's thinking about schools? If you were going to, I know that you've tried and you have been successful in influencing the Gates Foundation. They wouldn't have brought you in to talk to you if they weren't concerned about the message that you had. But is there one thing Bill Gates could do at this moment that you think would make a difference? Except leave, of course, to pull out completely.
You know, the thing that I think he is that would be most challenging for him would be to realize that he is not an expert in education, and to actually internalize that his experiences in education are in no way informative, useful information for what we need for most students, and for him to actually approach education from the standpoint of not saying, as he has said, that the field of education doesn't know its own field, but to actually be a little bit more humble and realize that he might have something to learn.
And he is not an authority on
He's
public education.
He's not an authority on
education,
education, on public education,
or human development,
or the
learning.
development of children. Yeah, that there's real problems with his assumptions, and if he could bring himself to that point, that would be transformative for him.
Anthony, thank you. It's been a privilege and a
All
pleasure.
right, thank you. Well, good luck with